Say with me, the plague has begun. Amen. The plague has begun. Saints, we must understand that whatever happens, God allows it. You can't do anything about it when God is in the program. There are many people that are seeking the power, they are seeking authority, they are seeking position and rule. There are so many people that are seeking honor and recognition. And all of these are sought too often by many people. People are looking for power. But in seeking for these things, the motive is most time wrong. The motive must always be to serve people and not to rule or be lords over people. The motive must be to help and to make a contribution to society and not to hold positions in order to receive more money or receive more honor from men. It is wrong to covet positions for self purposes. Selfishness leads to strife and it leads to division. Selfishness, it leads to disintegration and it leads to destruction. Seeking position and seeking authority, trying to rule for selfish purposes, it can destroy lives. It causes corruption and it corrupts organization and it causes rebellion within nations. Selfishness and self-seeking is at the root of so many of the problems that we are experiencing and we see throughout society. It's all because of selfishness. Now, what happens now in Israel paints a clear picture of what selfishness and self-seeking can do to disrupt the lives of people. And because of their unbelief and rebellion against God, the people were often believing in God, but when you lose that belief in God, when you get in selfishness, now there's going to be a change. Their unbelief in God, God calls Moses to send 12 spies to go over into the Canaan land and check the land out. And 10 came back with a negative report. 2 came back and said, we can take it. They said the land is so blessed over there. The grapes are so big, it took 2 men to carry a cluster of grapes. It took 2 men to carry a cluster of grapes to put on the back of an animal so the animal can carry the grapes. I'd like to see some of them grapes. It takes 2 men to carry a cluster of grapes. But because of 10 people put unbelief into the other people. Therefore, you have to watch who you hang with. You got to watch who is feeding you, because people can put unbelief in your spirit. Let's say, help me, Lord. And because of their unbelief and rebellion against God, the people were forced to turn back from the promised land and wander about in the desert wilderness. And because of this drastic change, because God said you're not going there because of your unbelief, a group of leaders noticed the change, and God told Moses, I'm not going to let you go. I tried all I could do to get you into the promised land, but now you still won't believe after all the miracles that you have seen me do. I have performed so many miracles, and now you still won't believe. And so now I'm your biggest enemy. I said, God said, I'm your enemy now. I'm not going to allow any of you all to go to the promised land. The originals that came out of Egypt, y'all going to die in the wilderness. And so, since there's a drastic change of plans, a group of leaders banded together to lead a revolt against God's servants by the name of Moses and Aaron. There was a rebellion, and the issue is at stake. In all rebellions, there are critical issues at stake. Strong differences that lead to divisions and usually to injury. All this rebellion can cause injury. It can cause a slaughter of people. Rebellion can cause death. Rebellions are caused by such things as broken promises, injustice, and greed. Rebellions are caused by dissatisfaction with leadership and policies. Dr. King led a rebellion. Somebody said the Bible said obey the law of the land, but I hadn't read it yet. He didn't obey because he led a rebellion because it wasn't right for Rosa Parks, tired, and her feet is tired. Yeah. It wasn't right for her to give up her seat and go sit in the back for another man of another color. Right. And so therefore a rebellion came. That's right. Rebellions are caused by things such as lust for power, selfishness, and a true heart for service. Rebellions are caused by things such as a belief that one can actually do a better job than the present leader. Just go with me for a little while. This is the Lord's day. And in this situation, you have a man by the name of Korah, and his allies were disgusted with the leadership of Moses and Aaron. Now, under God's direction, Moses had just turned Israel around from the promised land back into the desert wilderness. The adults 20 years old or older, they were condemned to wander about in the wilderness and die over the next 38 years. All because of their terrible sin of unbelief in God. Korah and his allies, they were ready to take action, and they did take action. They conspired and they incited a rebellion against Moses and Aaron. A rebellion against God and his leaders was actually taking place. Korah and his allies, they were fed up, and they were filled with anger, and they were filled with wrath. They were filled with fire and fury against Moses and Aaron. They blamed Moses and Aaron for not fulfilling the promise to take the Israelites into the promised land. If Moses would not lead the people to the promised land, then they made up in their minds, we'll take over and lead the people. And by force, they would take over the leadership role and lead the people into the promised land. So the charges against Moses and Aaron are scattered throughout this chapter. And for this reason, they are being listed here in one place for a better understanding. Korah and his allies, they opposed the leadership of Moses, and they wanted to replace him and have power of the national leader. They wanted the Levites promoted as priests. Korah and his allies, they craved the priesthood, which is the power of the high priest. Korah and his allies, they blamed Moses for failing to enter the promised land. And so the rebels are conspirators. Korah was the ringleader of the rebellion. He was a Levite and he was a cousin to Moses. I want you to know sometimes your biggest enemy is in your house. Sometimes your biggest enemy is right among your kinfolks. Are y'all listening to me? And so here you have a Levite that is a cousin to Moses, and their fathers were brothers. And 3 other brothers of the tribe of Reuben were also ringleaders. And their names were Dathan, Abiram, and On. And Korah was from the Kohathite clan. Are you listening to me? The Kohathite and the tribe of Reuben camped on the side of the tabernacle side by side. And so since they were living close together and being friends and co-leaders, it gave them plenty of opportunities to sit around in the evening grumbling and murmuring and complaining, sharing their complaints and disappointments about having to turn away from the promised land and to wander about in the wilderness of the desert. A journey that Moses has said would be a 40-year wilderness wandering. And at some point in time, the 4 ringleaders shared their complaints and they shared their grumblings, and they began to plot a revolt against Moses and Aaron. 250 well-known leaders were encouraged to join the rebellion. And these leaders were official representatives who were appointed members of the council of rulers. And some were even Levites, the religious leaders of the nation who worked under Aaron the priest. The issue of protest was opposition to the leadership of Moses and Aaron. And their charge was a pointed attack against the authority of Moses and Aaron. The charge was direct and the charge was sharp. The 2 leaders had assumed too much authority. They charged them and accused them of having too much power. They accused them and said that they had gone too far this time by turning them away from the promised land. Are you listening to me? And the Israelites were a holy people, not unholy, and certainly in their minds not so unholy and sinful that they could be kept from entering the promised land. And so the Lord was with them and the Lord was guiding them, they felt. And so why is Moses and Aaron, how have they set themselves above the assembly and having the authority to turn the whole nation of Israel from the promised land and dashing their hopes upon the rocks of despair? This was the reason of the rebel or the rebels, how they attacked and came against Moses and Aaron. Korah and his allies lusted after the power and authority of leadership. They were after the position and power of Moses, and they were after the position and power of the priesthood. The whole group stood face to face against Moses and against Aaron. They were full of fire and fury. They were ready to take over the reign of government, and they were ready to rule over the people. And Moses, when he found out these men are standing face to face with him, Moses fell face down, seeking God and holding his peace. And Moses did not lash out, nor did he retaliate against the rebels. And when they first confronted him face to face, he fell prostrate to the ground in great meekness and humility. And he took the matter to the Lord. Saints, when you have opposition, tell God about it. Oh, I wish I had a few witnesses here. When things are coming against you, lay out before God and talk to God about it. And when Moses arose off the ground, he posed a challenge to Korah and his allies. And he suggested a test by fire to let the Lord choose his own leader. He chose a test by fire to show who really belonged to God and who could really approach him for leadership in guiding God's people. The test by fire was very simple, and they would all prove themselves by taking censers and burning incense before the Lord. And only the priests were allowed to burn incense before the Lord. And so this would give God a dramatic opportunity to show just who he wanted in the leadership position. God bless you, my brother. Remember that two priests in Leviticus, I believe 10, two priests by the name of Nadab and Abihu, they came there to the tabernacle and they offered strange fire in burning incense, and they were stricken dead because of their false approach to God. Now, what Moses was suggesting here was a dramatic demonstration of God's will. God would show exactly who he wanted to serve as leaders of his people. And if Korah and his allies survived the trial of fire, then the leadership position would be theirs. But they would immediately become the leaders of God's people if they survived the trial by fire. Moses declared that the result would be final. The Lord would definitely show his leaders by the test of fire. The Lord would choose the one. He would choose the one who was set apart. He will select the one who is holy to him and to be the one appointed by God to lead his people. And so look at Moses. He's being challenged, and Moses is angry now. Moses was angry, and the leader rebuked and warned Korah. He warned the Levites, and he warned the 250 rebels. And Moses said they were the ones who had gone too far. He used their own charge against them. And Moses said that they were guilty of abusing God's call for Moses and Aaron to serve as Levites. And they had personally been given the privilege of being set apart to serve God and his people. Moses and Aaron knew that God had chosen them, and they were already leaders and servants of God appointed to lead the people. And they were guilty of seeking the priesthood. Listen at Moses talking. He says that they are guilty of seeking the priesthood, which is a higher position that should come only from God. Amen. Saints, you can't barge your way into leadership. You got to let God put you up there. Are y'all listening to me? And they were revolting against the Lord and banding together against him and not against Aaron. And someone had mentioned to Moses that Dathan and Abiram were also part of the conspiracy. And therefore Moses asked them, said, look, we need to have a meeting. I want you two to come and meet with me. He summons the meeting, but these guys by the name of Abiram and Dathan, they refused to meet with Moses, and they said to Moses, we will not come. And all the emotions of a rebellious heart flooded their souls. Saints, when you get rebellious in you, when you get a rebellious spirit, you're going to have some emotions that's going to be ugly. I can't get but a few amens. And 2 times they expressed their contempt and defiance, declaring unto the God-given leader, Moses, that they will not come. Saints, when leaders tell you to do the right thing, then you're supposed to obey them. The leader is not against you. The leader is trying to help you. And they exaggerated their former life and provision in Egypt. And with hearts full of contempt, they described Egypt as the true land that flows with milk and honey. Now, how can you describe Egypt? The land that got a whip on your back. The land that got you bound in slavery. The land that got you praying for 400 years, asking God to get you out of this place. And now you saying this is the land that flows with milk and honey. These men blamed Moses for their predicament in the wilderness. And they accused Moses of lording over them and failing to lead them into the promised land as he promised. And they charged him with abuse of power. They charged Moses with ulterior motives and deceiving the people. And so here is Moses. He cried out to God, asking him not to accept the incense offering on the wilderness. He declared that he was innocent and he didn't abuse his office for any gain. And he didn't do anybody any wrong. When you know you haven't done anybody any wrong, you don't have to worry about a guilty conscience. Are y'all listening to me? And so we need to learn some important things here, because we need to understand that seeking positions of power is wrong. A person must seek to serve people and not to hold positions of power. You shouldn't be after trying to get to the high seat. Are y'all listening to me? Even Jesus said the scribes and Pharisees, they desire to sit in Moses' seat. Some folk want to get in the high seat and know they don't deserve to be there. But a person that's after positions, they will demonstrate motives and will be severely judged by God. How many of you know we have to have humility? We have to humble ourselves, even though you have certain ranks and you have certain positions. You must understand that you're human just like anybody else. And therefore you must respect people and honor people and not cause your position to abuse people. I wish I had a grand church. And when opposition arises, a godly leader must not strike back, nor he must not attack the opposition. A godly leader must first go before the Lord, and he must do 2 things. He must seek the Lord to make sure his leadership is pure and just. He must make sure that he has worked hard and fulfilled his purpose before the Lord and the people. The leader must seek the Lord and handle the opposition in a humble and just way. And godly leaders must live big humble lives and be willing to serve and bless others. Godly leaders must live humble lives seeking to serve others. And believers, how many believers do I have in the house? Believers must not complain. They must not grumble, and they must not murmur against their leaders. I want you to know that grumbling and murmuring and causing strife among the people, it is forbidden by God. Are you going to pray with me? a little while. And there was a showdown, and there was a trial by fire that was set up to challenge and test who's going to be the leader. And Korah and his allies had accepted the challenge. They accepted the challenge to approach the Lord on the next day. And every man had to take his censer and put incense in his censer. And just imagine in your mind all 250 rebels in opposition against the leader that God has chosen. Every one of them had to put incense in their censer. And even Korah and Aaron had to take their censers. But the most arrogant and rebellious stand was taken by the rebels rather, and standing against Moses and Aaron. Look at these rebels. Look at these people that are in opposition, standing with pride, standing with arrogance, standing there with their chest out, standing there tall and getting ready to challenge and stand before God. But I want you to know that test by fire, say the test by fire, would take place at the entrance of the tabernacle. It was there that God would choose which men would be his leaders. And the response of the Lord was mighty sudden. You see, God don't take a long time to do what he need to do. The response of God was immediate. And the glory of the Lord flashed, and his glory was visible to everybody. The Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, and he spoke, and his message was very clear. The Lord was declaring doom for all of the people, and the Lord threatened to destroy the entire nation. He threatened to kill all of them at once. But not only were the rebels to be destroyed, but the whole nation of people, because the multitude supported the rebels. How many of you know misery loves company? Anytime you got somebody rebelling against leadership, they're not going to do it by themselves. They're going to talk to somebody and try to find somebody to get on their side. But you ought to say with me, I'm not a garbage can. I'm not going to allow nobody to bring mess and mess up my peace. If you're not satisfied, then go where you can be happy. But there are some happy folk in the house, and you don't need to poison somebody else's mind. Am I right about it? And so not only were the rebels against Moses, but they had some backup. It's just like Satan. Satan decided to take over and try to overthrow God. But he couldn't do it by himself. And so therefore he slandered the name of God and talked negative to a third of the angels and caused them to get on his side. And then here come Michael when they decided to try to overthrow God. They overthrew them, and Michael fought against Satan and cast him out of heaven. And so it's the same picture here. You got some people that have talked among the group. You got to watch who's feeding your ears. You got to watch who's pouring into your spirit. Because if you don't watch out, somebody will poison your mind. Somebody will poison and take away your joy. Are y'all going to help me pray a little while? Remember that the rebels were official representatives of the nation. The rebels were community leaders who had been members of the ruling council of the nation. And most of the people supported the cause of the rebel leadership. The rebels were representing the people in their attempt to overthrow the leadership of Moses and Aaron. It's bad when you got two good people that are working in the will of God, and then you got some leaders that he has appointed and the leaders have changed on him. Oh, praise his name. Come on and say, don't change on me. If you're happy, let's keep it like that. If there's a problem between me and you, let's work it out. If there are issues that you don't agree with, let's work it out. It's not my fault that you're not going to the promised land. You should have believed God when he sent all them 10 plagues. You should have believed God when he opened up the Red Sea and closed the water on your enemies. You should have believed God when he fed you manna in the wilderness. You should have believed God when he got water out of a rock. You should have believed God when he gave you some quail. It's not my fault that you're not going to the promised land. You listen to 10 negative spies and they poison your faith. Y'all ain't gonna help me today. Don't look at me because you're not getting your blessing. Your blessing is dependent upon you. Are y'all listening to me? And so here Moses and Aaron being attempted by the rebels to be overthrown. And since they see this coming their way, Moses and Aaron fell down on their face and they cried out and prayed to God. And they addressed God as the creator and the God of the spirits of mankind. And they begged God not to destroy all the people because of one man's sin. And Moses put most of the blame on Korah and the 4 ringleaders that were in the rebellion. He put the blame on Korah, Dathan, and Abiram, and he put it on the other man by the name of On. And the Lord answered the prayer but warned Moses. He said, Moses, somebody help me say, Moses, judgment is getting ready to fall. When you hear the word judgment, it means the wrath of God is getting ready to move against somebody. Oh, praise his name. Lift your hand and say, Lord, have mercy on me. I'm not perfect, but I still need his mercy. I said I need his mercy. Lord, have mercy on me. Come on and help me say, Lord, have mercy. Oh, praise his name. Do you need his mercy? I say I need his mercy. Say praise the Lord. And the Lord heard him. He said, I'm getting ready to move. But look here, Moses. You tell the people to get away from the tent of the rebels. Somebody is hanging with the wrong group. You got to get away from that group that'll lead you astray. Say praise the Lord. Somebody was doing good for a while, but you start hanging with that group that pull you down. You got to get away from them because that group will take you down in a backslidden condition. Lord, help me today. to get away from that wrong group. No wonder he said, come out from among them and be separated. If you hang around that group, you're going to have them habits coming back. The Lord delivered you. He set you free, and you got to stay free. You got to get away from the wrong group because evil communication will corrupt good manners. And I see judgment is getting ready to fall. Moses, get away. Get the people away from those folk because judgment is getting ready to fall. And judgment fell. The wrath of God fell on Dathan, Abiram, and Korah, and everybody that joined the rebellion. The ringleaders, they were confronted by Moses and the elders of Israel, who were the true servants of God. And I see the people, they begin to move back. They heeded the warning, and they got out of the presence of those wicked men. They had to separate themselves totally from the wicked. And he said, don't you touch a thing that they have over there. Don't put your hands on it. Some of y'all need to take your hands off because it's going to hinder your blessing. And the two ringleaders came out of their tents and they were standing with their families to confront and stand against God's leaders. Can I go up a little higher? But Moses was courageous. Moses was bold because he knew he is a righteous man. For the righteous are bold as a lion. And he declared the judgment of God. It would prove that he was God's servant. I'm not worried about it. Moses said, I'm bold. I know who I am. And when you know who you are, you don't have to worry about the liars. You don't have to worry about the critics because you got God backing you up. Say, praise the Lord. He was bold and he declared the judgment of God. And he said the judgment of God is going to fall in a spectacular way. He told them that the judgment was going to be like this. He said the earth would open up and it's going to swallow the rebels and everything they got. And they're going to go down alive in the pit. And while Moses was talking, soon as he finished talking and soon as he finished speaking, are y'all listening to me? There was a split in the ground. The earth began to move. The earth began to open up. The earth began to start quaking. While they were standing there, God moved and he opened up the earth, and all of the rebels, they fell down in the earth. Their household fell down. Their families fell down in there. All of their children fell down in the pit. They went down in the grave. The earthquake opened the jaws of the earth. Y'all ain't helping me. And these rebels fell alive. Right alive. They didn't even die then. He said, I'm going to put y'all in the grave while you living. Oh, praise his name. It ain't going to be no funeral, but you're going down into the grave because you done messed up. You see, God is a great God. And when he let them go down, the earth began to close back up, and it closed on them and sealed them down in the pit, and they perished, and they were gone forever. Look at their bodies being crushed by God, by the power of God in the earth, and now they are gone forever, never to be seen anymore. And the people took off running. They heard the screams of the rebels. The screams of the rebels. They were hollering real loud. Are y'all gonna pray with me a little while? They were standing tall. They had pride in them. They came against the leader. But look at the rebels now. The judgment of God had taken over the rebels. But God said, I ain't through. It's 250 of y'all that done got your incense and coming up in the tabernacle, the place right over there where the holies of holies is, and you ain't got no business in here. But since you so bad and since you got pride, I want to show you who I am. You say you are the leader. God sent a lightning bolt of fire, and he sent it out and burned up to 250. He took their lives. Fire blazed out of the presence of God. No wonder they told me that our God is a consuming fire. Say, praise the Lord. You see, God's judgment is just judgment. He won't do you no wrong, but the unbeliever will suffer the eternal judgment of God. And children and spouses, you don't have to follow the footsteps of the wicked mamas and footsteps of wicked daddies. You see, God will judge all unbelief. He gonna judge rebellion against him and his leaders. And so believers, where are my believers? I said, where are the believers? The believer got to pray for your leader. How many of y'all praying for me? I need your prayers. I say, I need your prayers. You got to pray for your leader, and you got to support him. Say, praise the Lord. Don't attack your leader, and don't criticize him or praise his name, because the leader, he needs your prayer. He needs your support. Just like I pray for you, I need the same thing. I said, just like I pray for you, I need your prayers. Help me, Lord. And the Lord gave a commandment that was to serve as a warning, to warn the people. He said, Eliezer, go get those censers of the 250 dead men who were killed by the fire of the Lord. Since they came into the tabernacle, their censers are holy now. So get those censers and take them and hammer them censers and hammer them in sheets of metal, and take the sheet of metal and overlay the altar. And every time they see it, it's going to be a warning to the people of God's judgment. You see, God got a way to prevent any future unbelief and rebellion. He got a way to warn you. Don't you come to me any kind of way. He wanted to keep the people from approaching God in the wrong way. Nobody could approach God with the burning incense other than the priest. And if you not a priest, you better stay in your lane. I can't get no help here. I say, if you're not a priest, you stay in your lane. because God got a man that he has put his hands on to do his job. And I want y'all to know that the incense is a symbol of prayers being offered up to God. When they put that thing in there and cause it to burn, put the coal of the altar and burn the incense, the smoke start moving. The smoke started rising. The smoke start going higher. I said higher. Can I go a little higher? The smoke start coming up, going to the heights, and the smoke of the incense represent prayer. So when you get on your knees, when you're driving the car, when you're going down the road praying, your prayers is the smoke. Your prayers are going higher. Oh, praise his name. That's why you ought to pray. I say you ought to pray because I see the smoke. And God says, every time I hear your prayers, it's rising, it's rising, it's going higher, it's coming before the throne of God. That's why you ought to have a talk with Jesus and tell him, woo! I said tell him everything you need to talk about. If it's a secret thing, let the prayers go up. Let the smoke go up. You won't get no results when you don't pray. But God says, I see your smoke. I see your smoke. I see your smoke. I see your smoke. Is anybody praying here? I see your prayers. I see your prayer. I see your prayers. And they're rising. I said they're rising. Can I go up a little higher? Help me say rising. Man ought to always smoke. Y'all ain't gonna help me. This smoke is a spiritual smoke. This smoke is your prayers. This smoke goes to your God, and his ears are open to your smoke. Y'all ain't gonna help me. Yes! Clap your hands and shout yes. Is there anybody smoking? I ain't talking about no cigarettes. I'm not talking about weed. I'm not talking about a blunt and not a Swisher Sweet. I'm not talking about a black and mild, but I'm talking about down on your knees. I'm talking about the prayer wheel. It represents the smoke. Shout yes! Clap your hands and say yes. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Lord. I gotta close here. I said I gotta close. But one more thing. I said one more thing. We must understand that there is a way that we gotta approach God. And the only way that we can get to God, we got to come through a priest. And Jesus is the high priest. He's the mediator between God and man. He stands between you and God. And he is the only way that you can get in his presence, in the presence of God. But I see death, and I see Korah, and look at all that stuff. But overnight, you'd be surprised And when God moved, folks still got the devil in them. They just seen God move, and it didn't change their mind. Some folk are stubborn. They're hard-hearted. But overnight, the people begin to mumble, and they start complaining, and they grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The people accused Moses and Aaron of causing the death of all the rebels. The people say, you had it planned. You had them to be killed the way you wanted. Are y'all listening to me? But the people didn't understand that unbelief is the rejection of God's word. Unbelief is refusing to follow him. Unbelief is failing to obey God. And they still didn't understand that complaining and grumbling and murmuring against God's leaders was wrong. They still didn't understand that they can't stand against opposition to God's leader. And their minds were blinded to obedience, blinded against following God in the spirit of love as he had demanded them. So the next day, after God took all these folk out, they start grumbling and complaining against Moses and Aaron. But God heard it. And God said, I'm finna get at it again. God was quick. He intervened. He moved in a great way. The tabernacle, here come a cloud. The presence of God covered the tabernacle, and the glory of the Lord, it came forth, and judgment was falling again. God is getting ready to move again. I thought I had them chastised. They saw what I did to Korah and the bunch. They saw what I did to 250, and they hadn't learned nothing yet. So God said, I got to move again. So the wrath of God fell again, and Moses and Aaron came to God and approached God's presence in front of the tabernacle. And God spoke to Moses. He said, move away and leave the people, because I'm getting ready to kill them. Y'all ain't going to help me. But without warning, the judgment of God, it began to fall. And here come a plague. I say, here come a plague. And the plague went out from God and began to strike the people. And Moses, he knew what was happening. You see, when you walk with the Lord, it ain't hard for you to see what God is doing. He said, I see death. I see the hand of God, and I see death coming to God's people. And Moses said, I want to spare the lives. I got to move in a hurry. Come here, Aaron. Death is in the land again. The wrath of God is being poured out. Oh, praise his name. I need you to do something. I want you to do something. Get that censer with some incense and place burning coals on it from the altar. And when you get it done, hurry up, Aaron, because the folk is dying. Go out and rush among the people and make an atonement, because God's judgment, the judgment of God, has already started. The plague is started spreading out among the people, and death was in the land. The plague was hitting them, and they were falling like flies. They were dropping dead. But here come Aaron with his censer. Here's a man that's over 80 years old. He took off running, stepping over dead bodies. He took off running, dead folks everywhere. But I gotta get in front of it. He took off running with his censer, and he stood before the living and the dead. Oh, praise his name. And he stopped the plague. I say he stopped the plague. The high priest came in with the power of God and stayed the hand of death. 14,700 people had died because of a plague. Are y'all listening to me? But when he came through and got stopped dead, he began to praise the Lord. Moses and Aaron began to say, thank you, Lord. I know you're hot. I know you're mad. But I want to say thank you for sparing the lives. You could have wiped them out. I know y'all say that God won't kill nobody, but God will kill you, and he'll get rid of you. He'll move you out. The wrath of God is very dangerous, because it's a dangerous thing to fall in the hands of an angry God. And look at the country today. We got a plague that's sweeping the land. It went over in China, killed them by the masses. It done got over here. It done got over in Italy. It's over in Europe. It's everywhere. It ain't nothing but a plague. Are y'all listening to me? But I want y'all to know, I wonder, can I find somebody that can stand in the gap? Oh, praise the Lord. Can we find some men of God? I know we ain't perfect. All of us have to go to the altar and plead the blood. And we got to say, Lord, forgive me again. Are y'all listening to me? But the fool has said that there is no God. But God is showing us that he is real. He's real. He's real. He's real. I say he's real. You see, God, when he get ready to move, he'll shake the nation. You see, righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. And what we got to do, since we're sinners saved by grace, we need to get at the altar. If y'all don't mind, can I go to the altar? I said, can I go to the altar? If y'all don't mind, I wish we could just go and come to the altar and say, Lord, have mercy. Can somebody stand in the gap? I said, somebody stand in the gap. Oh, praise his name. Come on, men of God. Stand on the other side. We need some men of God that'll call on God. Let's get down a while and let's pray to the Lord. Lord, oh Lord, help our nation. We're confused and people are dying everywhere. A plague done took the nation. It's over here. We're afraid. We won't go to work now. We're at home, working at home. Folk are being laid off. Houses are going to go in foreclosure. Oh, praise the Lord. Lord,
Help me, Lord. Why don't y'all pray? Can I find somebody that'll call on God? Can I go up a little bit higher? Lord, we need you right now. The elderly are afraid to come out of their houses. Lord, have mercy. Children are afraid. Lord, have mercy. And I'm so tired of getting all these messages through Facebook. Lord, have mercy. Touching the land. Church, the wrath of God is being poured out on the nation. But I heard the Lord say, if I shut up heaven, that there be no rain. If I send locusts to devour the land, if I send pestilence among my people, but if my people, can I go up just one more time? If my people, which are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek his face. And Lord, help us to turn. That old flesh man got us in trouble. But Lord, help us to turn from our wicked ways. You said you will heal the land. Lord, stretch out your hand. Stop the plague. Oh Lord, have mercy. Have mercy. Have mercy. Yes. Clap your hands and say yes. Say yes. Shout yes. 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 Yes.